All right, I'm going to try to keep this quick. If you're wondering, where all this political correctness, CRT, Black Lives Matter, and all that came from and how it plays into the big picture of things, this is going to be a very quick overview. Basically, during World War II, and before World War II, really, a lot of Soviet communist sympathizers made their way into the West. A lot of them got into our education system as professors and whatnot. There was basically two forms of thoughts when it came to the Soviets and the communists and the Marxists. Was that you had the violent people who wanted to overthrow the system violently, and they believed that's how you would achieve a true communist revolution, was through a violent revolution. And then you had the other ones who thought that you played a long game. You could take a democracy or a republic, a capitalist system, and slowly transfer it to a socialist system, which then eventually would become a communist system. Most of the people who believed that went to the West. The hardcore violent types stayed in the Soviet Union, and they got what they wanted. As far as the ones over here, like I said, they got into colleges and whatnot. They also got into high ranks within the state departments and political systems of the West, and in particular the United States. During World War II, the Soviets basically told all of them, okay, we're fighting a common enemy. So instead of gathering intel and doing typical communist stuff, help the people you've infiltrated, help the United States government, help the Western powers, and to help them defeat the Nazis. And by doing so, they were able to rise up into high positions of power, get a lot of influence. That's why we still have problems in our State Department now. It's still a leftover of this. Anyways, over time, the goal eventually was to flip the United States, to cause some kind of civil disruptions, and that's why they were heavily involved in the civil rights movement. They don't really care about civil rights movements. They were just there because it was a disruption. It was something to cause division, and that's the whole point, is to create division. Basically, that's what the Soviets were trying to do, was through these infiltrators and communist and Marxist sympathizers, to create enough division to destroy the United States and make it fall apart. This didn't happen due to a lot of reasons, partially because of the way our government's founded, because of just the nature of Americans. We're just independent-minded type people. We don't really particularly like being told what to do. And then the Soviet Union fell, so all these different communist and Marxist-related groups kind of lost their common puppet master, and they just kind of separated and fizzled out into the culture and whatnot. And then the reason why we've recently, because it never went away. I remember being in high school in the early 2000s, and all this CRT type, it was there. It wasn't as pronounced. The reason why it became more pronounced over time, not only because it was growing in power, but also because a new puppet master came in. And the new puppet master, of course, is China. So with the Soviets fell, like I said, these groups kind of fizzled out. They didn't really fizzle out, but they spread apart, and they went into the culture, and then more so than they already had. And then when China came in, they're trying to pull all these organizations back together. And once again, the goal isn't, like, the goal of BLM isn't to actually help Black people. The goal of CRT isn't to have racial healing and reconciliation or not. No, the goal of all of these groups are not even there to gain power. The only thing these groups are here for, is to create division. And that's why, and they do. And that's, if you just look at CRT, the language it uses, the language is meant to cause division. That's why they change definitions. That's why they name things, white privilege instead of majority privilege. Because if it was called majority privilege, then you'd be like, oh, well, so every country has majority privilege? Well, then what's the big deal? Exactly. It's there to cause division. It's there to cause hate. The goal is to disrupt the United States enough for things like we're seeing in the Ukraine to happen, and eventually Taiwan and all that. Once again, the whole goal of all of this is to create the division, weaken the United States, and the main player behind it now is China. China wants to be the new hegemonic power. They want to be the new superpower. They want to be the ones behind everything. And I guarantee you, if you looked into all these organizations that support any of the Marxist type crap, and by the way, that's the common thing about like BLM, CRT, all this PC type stuff, it's all Marxist based, and that's the tell. If it's Marxist based, don't believe it. It's BS. Just don't believe it. But yeah, so anyway, that's what's going on. This is all just a big game. It used to be the Soviet Union who wanted to take over and be the new and only world superpower, and now it's China. And the only thing standing in its way is largely the United States and our Western allies. And unfortunately, they've done a really good job of making us all angry and hate each other and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's it.